It's such a pleasure, being in this such pandemic situation where I get to speak around the world, and so I can call myself as an international speaker. So just to give a little bit introduction of myself. So my name is Chen Choon. I have been a Toastmasters for over 12 years. And every year I was competing over and over again. And some of my accolades, including like winning the district championship and stuff like that. But despite all those achievements, despite all those being like distinguished Toastmasters, what brings me the greatest joy is to be able to connect to each and every one of you like today, to kind of form a relationship with each and every one of you. I know some of people in this room. I know Rona, I know Dewey. I did a workshop for them before in SCBD. I know Elios, and then at the same time, I also brought few of my people from District 51 just to join in so that we can get together in this very interactive session between myself and yourself. A few things that I want to kind of establish upfront. I do hope that today's session is going to be an interactive session. I will throw in questions to you, and I really encourage you to really put in some thoughts into those questions. At the same time, my approach is always, I will spend a lot of time creating the slide, but at the last minute, I will always decide not to use the slide because, having the slide will kind of limit the way I express myself. So I will be sharing some drawings. I will draw as I explain, and so that I'm able to adapt my content as and when I see is required based on the question that you guys asked or the responses that you guys gave. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. And do let me know if you can see them. Can you see? Okay, so this is kind of like my canvas. I'm going to draw out things so that you're able to understand some of the things that I do when it comes to speech crafting. Of course, these things is a combination of different content from different experts. So I don't own any copyright to all of these content. Feel free to take them. Feel free to share them. Feel free to use them. Pick those things that works for you. If certain things that you feel could be better based on your style, again, you don't have to follow my approach. So I'm very humble in that sense. So today we're going to cover on the art of speech crafting. And I think to really appreciate speech crafting, we need to look deep into the whole audience psychology. Because if you understand audience psychology, you're able to craft a speech that really hit the mark. And I'm going to go into the very basic fundamental of how we communicate and what are the challenges when it comes to communicate. And based on that, how can we craft a speech to mitigate those challenges? Okay, so feel free to use the chat box. Ask me any questions you have. I'm always on standby, and then I can adopt. So this is going to be a very casual conversation between myself and yourself. Okay, so let me begin with this very simple question. What is communication? I think let's establish that first. What is communication? Now, to me, communication is addressing the question of, did I communicate? Okay, let me just quickly explain. Assuming, right, if I have a tennis ball with me right now, okay, I'm gonna pick one person from this group. Let's pick okay, Dewey. Okay, let's do a simple exercise. Assuming this, assuming if I have a tennis ball in my hand right now, okay. So I have a tennis ball in my hand, and this tennis ball is green. Okay. So if I throw this tennis ball to you, and just act like you caught the tennis ball.
Okay.
Okay. So tell me about the tennis ball. So if I say the tennis ball is green and I throw it to you, okay, tell me about the tennis ball.
It's fully rounded.
Okay. And what color is it?
It's green like grass.
Okay. That's all I need to know. So what I did just now was I composed a message and I throw to Dewey. And Dewey absorbed the message and say that it's round, it's green like grass. So communication has happened. So that is the fundamental of communication. And when we write a speech, right, we need to always have that at the back of our mind. So if I were to draw this out, communication happens I compose a message and you decompose it. Okay? So whatever I say, you received it. So when you receive it, you get my point of what I'm trying to say. So that is communication. And when we write a speech, we must have that at the back of our mind. But unfortunately, when we write a speech, it's not as simple as it seems because there are a lot of noises. Noises are things that dilutes our message. So dilution, inattention, and distraction. So in the beginning, before we write a speech, we need to understand that whatever is clear to us as a speaker will never be clear to your audience. Right? Okay, that is a standard understanding. Whatever is clear to us will never be clear to the speaker. So let's say we know our speech 80% of we know our speech 80%. When we communicate to the audience, they probably can absorb only 60% because they are not in our world. They don't know our background. They have their own perceived biasness. They have all these external and internal factor that affects the effectiveness of the message that you're going to give to them. So which means before you write a speech, you need to ask yourself this one question. What is your big idea? Okay. What is the one big idea that you want to share, that you want to use as a speech to communicate to your audience? And based on that, you need to establish what we call as foundational phrase. Okay. Foundational phrase is the one phrase that summarizes your speech. The one phrase that, assuming if you were to go out of the speaking hall, okay, then you walk in the corridor, you saw a familiar face. Okay, the familiar face come to you and said, "Hey, what did you spoke about? Can you summarize your speech in 15 seconds? Can you tell your speech in 15 seconds that the audience will understand?" So that is what we call the hallway test. Okay, now I want you guys to kind of think of a speech that you want to give, or a speech that you have given before in your past meeting, or you are going to give in the next meeting. If you were to walk out of your room right now and somebody asks you, what are you going to talk about? Are you able to say it out in 15 seconds or less? So that is your first step that you have to establish when it comes to speech crafting. That one line that establish what your speech about. Some example of foundational phrase that I can think of. What got you here won't get you there. So the speaker spoke about the successes that you get today will not determine the successes you get tomorrow. So that is a foundational phrase. Okay. Another foundational phrase is your dreams is not for sale. So like you speak about a dream and then somebody offer you a lot of money to not go for your dream, and then that could be your foundational phrase. So what is the one phrase that you have to remember as you write the speech? And because that would act as a barometer on your speech. So remember what I spoke just now, whatever is clear to you will never be as clear to your audience. So if you yourself are not clear with your foundational phrase, you are not able to convince the audience to want to know what you're going to talk about. And your foundational phrase has to be repeated over and over again in your speech. Okay, any questions so far? I'm just going on the more conceptual. Later we put all the pieces together and then you get to understand how all this uh, will be put in your speech writing process. You see, I think a lot of mistake a lot of people make when it comes to writing a speech is they write a speech this way, you know. So every time they have an idea that they want to write a speech, so they start writing their speech. It's a very linear way of writing. And what happens when people write speech this way, after a while, when they're out of idea, they start to force feed a certain things that doesn't fall into the foundational phrase. So the beginning of your speech, you have to establish the foundational phrase first. So my proposal that has worked for me is, instead of writing in a linear way, you start to group your speech into few sections, and then you put in a point in each of these sections, and you start to grow the points this way, instead of linear. So we are currently right now building the pieces for you to do this approach. And the first thing is your foundational phrase. Foundational phrase is a compass in which whenever you write your speech, you always fall back to the foundational phrase. If I add this content, does it add on to my foundational phrase or does it deviate from my foundational phrase? If it deviates from your foundational phrase, then you try not to put too much of such content. So that is the first step. Now that you have the foundational phrase, what is the second step? The second step is what we call the speech direction. Okay, remember this, yeah? If there is no change, there is no speech. Okay? What this means is, in the first step, once you identify what is the key message that you want to say, the second thing is you look at from the audience point of view. Here, what you really want to do is really think about think, feel, and act. What is your audience thinking right now? What is your audience feeling right now? And how is your audience acting right now? After listening to your speech, you establish what you want the audience to think later, what you want the audience to feel later after listening to your speech, and how you want the audience to act later. Okay? To put it in perspective, right? Think is the logic, feel is the emotion, and act is the action. Okay? You need to be very clear in this because as you bring your audience throughout your speech, right? If this is not clear to you, you are unable to get the audience on board in point A, and you're unable to bring them to point B. Okay, remember I spoke about this. So essentially, point A is here, point B is here, and you want to bring them through here using the foundational, okay, anchor. Okay, so these are the different pieces as you develop your speech. Okay, how the audience thinking, what is the audience thinking right now, feeling right now, acting. So if you want to give a speech about COVID-19, okay, you want people to feel more positive about life. Then you want to establish, okay, what is the audience currently thinking? What is the audience currently feeling? Is it fear? How are they acting? Are they very restricting themselves? Are they afraid to take risk? Okay, after listening to your speech, through your foundational phrase, how will they think? More optimistic. How would they feel more comfortable with change? And how will they act? Which is take more risk, learn more skills. So you need to be very clear in that. Because all this will be used in the next step, which is speech construct. Okay, so now let's put all these pieces together in terms of speech writing. Yeah, remember I spoke about this style. Okay, now we will go into this style so that you don't fall back into the trap of writing like this. Because you write like this, it's going to be very difficult for you to form a speech. Okay, let's go to the speech construct. In terms of speech construct, the first thing you want to do is, okay, this is your opening, yeah? This is your opening. You need the audience to acknowledge where they are right now. Here, in other words, here's the orientation to the point A. Every time in the beginning of your speech, you want to engage them, capture attention, and make them realize that they are in point A. Because if they don't realize they are in point A, if you look back at this, all these things will happen. Right? They will be distracted because they don't even acknowledge the problem. And how can you sell them your speech when they don't even know their problem? So they will be easily distracted. They will lose attention. Okay, so opening, what typically I do for opening is try to have a question that is almost impossible for them to say no, or what I call the no-brainer question. Okay, no-brainer question are, ladies and gentlemen, isn't it true that in life we are often faced with changes? Isn't it true that when these changes comes in, fear will engulf into us and restrict us from doing the things that we love to do? Okay, so that is orientation of point A. So in your opening, you need to establish the point early. Okay, a lot of speakers, they go up and then they talk a lot of flowery language, but when the audience, they listen, right, they are not sucked into the speech. So which is why this exercise is important. Okay, this exercise is important because once you know this, it's easier for you to craft the opening ready. Okay, in other words, here is kind of like opening the can. Okay, so that is the opening. Now, your body has three components. First, second, third. Okay. Okay, here's your. Okay. The first thing you do in your body is you want to start to paint the circumstance. Okay, paint the circumstance. Because right, when you open the can and they get sucked in your speech, then you want to start to describe where you are. Okay. Okay, so if I say the COVID, okay, I said that isn't it true that fear always limit us from doing the things that we like to do? Okay, so once you start opening it, then your first body, you want to say that there I was sitting down on the sofa with nowhere to go, right? With no one to talk to and nowhere to go. So you want to start to paint the circumstances. And here, typically, kind of paint the picture of, what are the circumstances that you are feeling and all those things. In the second part of your body, typically what I like to do is to make the switch. Okay, I think in the previous educational session, Yogesh did share a little bit about conflict, right? He did share about the guru shouldn't be you, right? The person who solves shouldn't be you. So something is happened here when it climax and resolve. Okay, so that is the second part of the body. Okay, so if you notice, I have point A here, and then here, I'm driving towards my point B already. Okay, I'm driving towards my point B. Okay, so in the second part of the body, try to have an incident or a moment that changes the way you behave. Okay, this is where the switch happened. And then in point 3, what happens is, what you want to do is to drive it home. Okay, so here is when you have made the switch already. You have made the transition to the new you, who is also somebody who is moving towards point B. Okay, so from somebody who is very fearful of change to somebody who accepts change. And then when you want to drive it home, you start to say things like, ever since I made that decision, so and so contacted me. I've got a new job. I started a new business. I found a new wife or whatever. So then you kind of drive it home to drive what exactly that you learn and what benefit you get out of it. Okay. In the conclusion, this is where you turn an I focus speech story into a you focused message. Okay, so this is the part where you start to change the dynamics of your speech to the audience. Okay, remember here, you have opened the can here. You have opened the can here. Here is where you close the can. Okay, so in the beginning, you capture the audience attention. Isn't it true that fear can limit you? Then towards the end, ladies and gentlemen, what about you? Is fear holding you back? The next time when you face fear, remember, then you bring in the guru. Remember this advice, because at the end of the day, then you start to drive the benefit. So typically, this is how a speech would typically flow. Okay, so at this point, do you have any question while I try to?
So that's very important. If you don't establish a change early, right, you're writing a speech trying to vomit out content that you think is cool. Like, hey, I heard about this. I feel it's very interesting. I need to put this in my speech. But again, it goes back to the foundational anchor. Is it aligned with the foundational anchor? Okay. How to translate figurative words that makes us somehow focus on the setting and the situation into a proper gesture. Wow, this one sounds like rocket science. I think there are a few parts to this. Okay, whenever we want to describe something, right, try to use more of a you focus type of question than a you focus statement than an I focus statement. So for instance, instead of saying I was at the sofa sitting down staring at the blank space thinking what should I do over the weekend. Now when we do that, yes, you are telling a scene, but if you change it to a you focus, right, you can say something like, if you were with me on that beautiful Sunday, sitting beside me, looking at me, staring at the screen, you will realize the many questions I had in my mind. You see, people will buy into a speech that they help create. Okay? People will buy the speech they help create. So instead of me telling you the circumstances, I want you to paint my circumstances on my behalf. Yeah, so that is how it works. Thank you for the clarity on making a speech. Do you have any tips on how to build rapport to the audience in the first time delivering a speech? Thank you. Okay, the next question is, when we have an impromptu speech, how can we craft the foundational phrase quickly, adjusting to the audience? Should we have the speeches bank, or maybe there are other things? Okay, let me take the first question first. Okay, so this one is on building rapport with your audience. Okay, here's a tip when it comes to building rapport with your audience. Yeah, whenever you guys want to build rapport with the audience, it's very important for you to know this. Many speakers, a lot of mistake they make is the opening, the questions that they have are very long. Okay, if you have a long question, when the audience start to think, you lose the emotional connection because they are triggering the logical part of their brain. So I'm sure you have seen the speeches where somebody come up the stage. The first statement they said, ladies and gentlemen, have you ever been in the situation when you are out of ideas, when you are faced with a challenge in the most impromptu situation of your life? You lose rapport already because your question is so long. So instead, build in questions that are short. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever had a bad day? Then you gesture, then they will respond. Have you ever had a bad day? Then you gesture. Then if they say yes or no, once they say yes, you got them hooked into your speech already. Okay, so that is how we use rapport. Use more you-focused question. No-brainer yes. These are the questions that can be used to build rapport. Okay, when we have to do an impromptu speech, how can we craft the foundational phrase quickly? Okay, let me share something with you, Michael. Okay, these are my notes. If you look into, so I do have a quote bank where I have all analogies, I have all the quotes that I kind of like, right, things that I like. See, the biggest illusion in life when we tell ourselves that it cannot be done is not real. Okay, success demands singleness of purpose. Learning is an experience. Everything else is just information. So these are the things that you start to collect. So whenever it hit the right mark, it triggers a certain thought for you to craft a speech. You have analogy. You have ideas. So this is how you quickly craft a foundational phrase. Yeah, another thing, right? When you guys craft a foundational phrase, there are three things that you must always remember. The first thing is it must be action-oriented. If your foundational phrase is not action-oriented, okay, let me just write it down, then it's easier for y'all to... Okay. Foundational phrase. Action-oriented. Okay, I'll explain later. If can, less than 10 words. Last one is, sorry, audience focus. Yeah, audience focus. Okay, audience focus. Okay, imagine this, right? Imagine a speech with the foundational phrase of the benefits of exercising. Okay, when you hear this, right, it's not something that I can use it and tell other people what to do. So that is not an action-oriented. But if I have things like your dreams is not for sale, it's very action-oriented one. It's like your dream is not for sale. So if your foundational phrase is action-oriented, it's very easy for your audience to tell others what your speech is about. Okay. Toastmasters John gave a speech about if you don't burn for your dreams will burn away. That is a foundational phrase. Okay. Less than 10 words because we want it to be catchy and easier to remember. If you guys want, you can check out this book called Speak Like Lincoln, Stand Like Churchill. Okay, so they have a principle called SCREAM, where it's simile, contrast, rhyme, echo, alliteration, metaphor. If you look at Dhanajaya's speech, I see something. If you had a chance, look into his semi-final speech, where the foundational phrase is, if you don't burn for your dreams will burn away. Metaphor, alliteration, echo, rhyme, contrast. It hits everything. Then people remember. Okay? What you drive doesn't determine what drives you. Metaphor, drive, alliteration, to a certain extent, rhyme, contrast, echo. You see, foundational phrase, you need to craft them nicely because that becomes an enabler on how people will sell your speech. And okay, audience focus meaning it's not informative, it's not narrative, it's something that the audience can, wow, it's something that can benefit me. Okay. Can I share a tip with you guys when it comes to speech writing? This is very important. If you understand this concept, how you write a speech totally changes, which is this. Okay, this is a very important point. If you can remember this, really, people will respect you. A speech is driven by audience reaction. Okay, now let me explain this. Every word you say in your speech will trigger a certain response in your audience. Whether is it passive, whether is it active, it will trigger something in them. So you need to write your speech with that lens. Okay, this is how you do it. Yeah, this is a secret that I do all the time. I mean, imagine this is your paper. You split the paper into half. Action, reaction. Okay, remember the few components that I have just now. Every part of this component will respond to a certain audience reaction. And you need to always be in control of the audience reaction. Okay, let me give you an example. In my speech, okay, maybe I can share my link later. I had a speech called Wow. Okay, the speech Wow is a speech where I went up the stage and I performed a piece of magic. And the audience kind of felt the magic. And then towards the end, right, my message was, it is okay not to know certain things, but you just have to embrace the experience. So I use magic to create the experience to them. And I tell my story. And then at the end, I do the magic again. And I say that if you forget everything I say, I hope you remember this experience. And then I repeat the magic again. So everything I do is triggered to a certain reaction. So in my speech, my first line was, ladies and gentlemen, do you want to see a trick? Okay, so that is my action. So in the audience reaction, they will say, yes. And then let's say I perform my magic, and then they will, wow. And then I will say, wow. So every sentence that I say will trigger something in the audience. If the audience stop asking question, then you lost them already. Okay. Dana Jaya's speech, you all know, right? I see something. Okay. So he started his speech. You and I are not very different from this flower. The audience reaction, why flower? What about the flower? Just like this, you and I are not very different from this flower. Just like this flower is something like you special. You are special. All of us have something special in us. And then you see every word he said will trigger a thought. Right? They say something, will trigger something. Say something, trigger something. Say something, trigger something. So you need to craft your sentences in a way that the audience have the chance to react. Okay? You and I are not very different from this flower, just like this flower is. Yeah, I can't remember the speech really. Okay, thank you for the tips, DTM Chen Choon. However, I often find it difficult to close the speech at least as powerful as the opening, since I have gone through two crucial parts, opening and body. Perhaps you can offer a new perspective how to see the closing part so that we can utilize a chance to magnify the impact. Just like this flower is unique, you are unique. All of us have something special that makes us as beautiful. Do you know what makes you special? So every time he say, thanks for reminders one, there's always a response. Okay, I want to take on this question by Dewey. It's a very good point. So this is one of the things that you guys can do. The second thing you guys can do can totally change the way you write your speech is what I call the river. The river is a very powerful way for you to put in seeds within your speech so that you can end it holistically. Okay, so the next big idea that you all can take away from this, okay, build the river that flows to your conclusion. Okay, so when you write a speech, when you write your speech, right? Let's say this is your speech, right? When you write your speech, okay, you want to subtly put in certain signals for the river to flow. And then in your conclusion, you can say just like A, B, C. Then you can conclude very powerful. Sorry, Michael, can you just let me know how much time I have? I'm rushing things through. Let me know how much time I have, then I can show my speech if I have the time. I have 2.5 minutes only. Wow, stressful. Okay. Let me just quickly go through. Okay, now this is my speech. Okay, now this is my speech. Yeah, I do a magic trick here. So I have wow here. Okay, and then here I have another wow. So this is my river. Here I have another wow. Okay, and then I think towards the end, I have another wow. Here, another wow. So this is my first river. Okay, my second river is here. Look at my second river, yeah? Okay, so in my speech, I said that be a professional accountant. Okay, first, this is profession river, and then this one is business river. Okay, and then third is getting married. Okay, marriage. Okay, so I set up 3 rivers here, first, second, and third. Accountant will flow here. Okay, see here, business, second river. So this is my accountant. And then last one is my wife. So my second river already. So this is the business. This is my accountant. This is my marriage. Okay. Even at this part, I also have some okay, see, do you want to see a trick? Do you want to see a trick? Another river. So towards the end, I kind of can bring all this together. Okay. Ever since the end. So this is my conclusion, yeah. Conclusion. So here, ever since my encounter with Alex, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And these 3, I'm able to say these 3 things because I have planted the river here already. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so to answer Dewey, when you write your speech, right, you need to consciously put in signals. You realize a lot of, even Yogesh said it in his educational session previously. He said, repeat the anchor, keep repeating. Okay, do you all know Ryan Avery? Trust is a must. Look into his speech. Identify what are the rivers. His speech has a river. Dana Jaya, I see something in you. I see something in you. I see something in you. There's another river. So when you write your speech, you need to consciously plan out your river so that at the conclusion is where your river will flow to the sea. Okay, I just want to quickly summarize. I don't have much time already. So sorry about, I know I just a lot of things to share, and sorry if I'm a bit too fast, but I just want to kind of give you a quick summary, then I can end the session. And then we'll see, I maybe can log on to Zoom later. You guys can ask me more questions if you guys want. So basically, in order for us to understand speech writing, you need to understand the communication model. We are composing a message, we are sending the message, and the audience is decomposing the message. So as they go through this, the audience have their own internal biasness and external biasness. And then we need to manage that. So the first thing is come up with the absolute clarity in terms of foundational phrase. Second, identify what you want the audience before and after, because this will set the direction for your speech. This is also very good for table topics, by the way. And then third, based on what you built first and second, start the speech construct. First, open the can, orientation to point A with a no-brainer question. In your body, paint your circumstance. Then second part of your body, make the switch, the conflict. And lastly, after the change, what was the benefit? Drive it home. And then what about you? Change to you-focused message. Then you can craft your speech ready. So here are some guide for foundational phrase. And that how you write your speech. Split your page into two. Every word you write must trigger a certain reaction, whether the audience thinking something, asking question, raising up their hands, confused, but they must do something. And then lastly is subtly put in the different components so that at the end, you're able to summarize it. You just pick it and then it's charged by, it's emotionally charged, and then you bring it out and then you use it as a conclusion. Okay? Wow, I never talked so fast in my life before. Okay, so I think that's the end of my session. I know it's a bit technical, but this is my style. If you guys want to learn more, then we are able. Let's see if I can just set up a very quick Zoom session later. I'll share the link, and then we can hop on to another call after this meeting. Okay, so with that, I want to hand back to the Toastmasters of the Tom for today.